If your life is long enough, eventually it's very likely you'll start accumulating at least some regrets. But how do you start letting go of regrets? How do you start working through them? That's the question I'm going to try to answer in today's brief video. My name is Zachary Stockill, and since 2013, I've been helping men and women from all over the world overcome retroactive jealousy and save their relationships. If you'd like more information about my work or you'd like to work with me one-on-one, please visit my website at retroactivejealousy.com. I received a very brief email recently that I wanted to respond to in some depth in a video, and the commenter wrote simply, "I have regrets in life. How do I start overcoming them?" This is a big topic, and I'm going to try to boil down some big ideas very briefly. But number one, if you have regrets in life, remember that any time you spend lamenting the past is time wasted. Okay, it's easy to say, it's sometimes difficult to internalize that idea. But let me break this down a little bit more. As we all know, we live now. We live in the present moment. That's all we have power over. That's all we have influence over. Me staring into my fancy camera, speaking to you today with this light over here, and I'm looking at the sunlight coming through the window. This moment right now is all that exists. You watching this video or listening to this podcast, right now, hearing my voice in your ear, this is all that exists. Right? If I start lamenting an hour ago, or even a year ago, or 10 years ago, or if I spend any time thinking about that period and wishing I could go back and change things, and wishing I could do this differently, and wishing I could do that differently, fundamentally, at the most basic, primitive level, that is time wasted. Because I can't do anything about 5 seconds ago. I can't do anything about 10 years ago, needless to say. The only thing I have any degree of power or influence over is right now. So my number one tip is to just keep this in mind, that any time you spend lamenting the past is time wasted. However, a very important caveat, the past obviously has numerous lessons to teach us. I've learned so many lessons from my past, from my mistakes, from my triumphs, from my failures, from everything in between, right? That's how we learn. We make mistakes, or sometimes we achieve things, we learn, we grow, we reflect, and we move forward. So sometimes reflecting on the past is good. Sometimes you can reflect on the past and draw the key lesson that needs to be drawn. So if you're lamenting something from your past, there's some lesson there. There's some knowledge, there's some insight. Now that can be classic things like, I should never do that again, or I should try harder in this area of life, or I should definitely try to do that again. Very simply, those are generally kind of the way regrets often work. I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I had done that, right? So sometimes there's wisdom there, sometimes there's a lesson to be drawn there. So I'm not saying disregard that. That's incredibly valuable. That's where the gold is when it comes to lamenting the past or reflecting on the past. Learn the lesson that needs to be learned, and I would also say crystallize that lesson. By crystallize, I mean, I don't think it's enough to simply think about it and try to keep it in your consciousness that way. I'm a big proponent of things like journaling, or you can even do a voice note to yourself or whatever. Find a way to articulate this lesson, write it down, record this lesson somehow, and keep it handy. This is why many people keep a diary, for example, over many years. But the point is, don't just assume you're going to remember that lesson, because believe it or not, even with very important lessons, it's all too easy to forget them as we get older and as our lives move on. So crystallize that lesson. Number one, learn the lesson that needs to be learned and crystallize that lesson. And then, as I mentioned a moment ago, direct 100% of your time, focus, energy, attention to what you have influence over, which is, of course, the present moment, and I would say strategizing or planning for a better future. Nowadays, Stoic philosophy is very popular. Everyone's talking about Stoicism. Stoic philosophy is an ancient school of philosophy, and the basic message of Stoicism is very simple. Disregard everything outside of your sphere of influence and focus only on what is within your sphere of influence. So that means, for example, the present moment, crafting a better life starting right now, starting today. Also remember that to be human is to be imperfect, right? To be human is to be human, more or less. What I'm trying to say is everyone, and I mean everyone, has certain things they look back on and wish they hadn't done, certain nights they wish they could take back, or sometimes certain decades they wish they could take back, right? And we all have that to some extent. So realize that you're not alone with having regrets. We all have regrets about the past to a greater or lesser degree. But for me in my life, I think I've really started letting go of regrets the more I realize that it's just a waste of time to go around feeling sad about things that I have no influence over, no power over. I mean, I could list some examples. I was in a very, very dumb motorcycle accident years ago that impacted my health and even impacted my appearance in certain ways. Now, this was, I mean, to talk about regret, I was so angry at myself for getting in the situation. I was so angry at myself for bringing this on myself that I spent a pretty solid year just beating myself up and being angry at myself and lamenting and regretting and all this stuff, when I realized at a fundamental level that I'm just wasting time. I can't build a time machine and go back 1 year and take back that accident and not get on that motorcycle. I can't travel back and I can't do anything about that. But I want to keep living and I want a better life and I want this kind of thing to never happen again. So I guess my only real choice is to let go of that regret and start living now and planning and strategizing for a better future starting right now, because focusing on the past is getting me nowhere. Remember that the only real option we have is to let go, because we live now and that's all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you benefited from this video, please take a moment to let me know by clicking the like button below. Please subscribe to my channel as well to be notified of new videos moving forward. Thanks again for your time, and I'll talk to you again soon.